welcome back to my system design series. And today we are diving into something that plays a crucial role in handling data efficiently, and that is Apache Avro. By the end of this session, you will not only understand what Avro is, but also how it works, why it is different, and how to use it with real world examples. Okay, so let's begin with the basics. What is Apache Avro? Simply put, it is a data serialization framework. Imagine you have data in one format and you want to send it over the network or store it efficiently. And that is where Avro steps in. It makes the data compact and efficient for this task. Avro was introduced in 2009 as a sub-project of because Hadoop needed something more versatile than Thrift. So Avro come into the life to make encoding and decoding of the data simpler and faster. Here is a fun analogy. Think of Avro as a translator who compresses your words, sends them across in a coded form, and ensures that the receiver decodes them perfectly into meaningful words. Now, Avro relies on something called schema. Think of schema as a blueprint of a recipe. It defines structure of data, that is what field exists, their types, and their order. For example, imagine that you are creating a profile on a social media app. The schema might something look like this. It will have username as string. It will have a favorite number, and third it will have interest. So username is string, a favorite number, it is a number that can be null, and interest can be array of strings. So here is how the schema would look like in Avro's ideal is interface definition language. So here you can see this record person defines a record type like a class or struct in any programming language, which is a person. A record is essentially a group of fields bundled together into one unit. So here the string username, this is the first field in the person record. It specifies the field username of type string. Okay. The next is union. A union is used when a field can have multiple types. Here, the favorite number can either be null or long. Null is no value provided and long is a 64-bit integer which is used for numbers. And here equals to null, this part specifies the default value. If no value is provided, this field will be null. Looks pretty simple, right? This schema tells Avro how the data is structured and ensures everything is in order. Avro has another trick, that is its schema can also be represented as JSON format. Here is how the schema will look like in JSON. What is amazing about Avro is how compact the binary encoding becomes. If we take an example record like username Archie, favorite number equals to null, interest would be coding and debugging. The binary encoding for this record is just 32 bytes. That is insanely compact compared to other formats like JSON and XML. Now let's understand how encoding and decoding works in Avro. Here is an important fact. Avro's encoded data doesn't include information about the field names or data types. It just stores values and the schema is used to guide to interpret those values. Imagine sending a package without labels but having exact list of what is kept inside the box, and that list is schema. The person who is receiving that package uses the same list to unpack it correctly. For example, the string Archie is encoded as the length prefix followed by UTF-8 bytes. But there is nothing in the binary data to say it is a string. That is why schema is critical for decoding the data. Here is where Avro shines as schema evolution. In the real world, schema changes over time. You may add fields, rename them, or remove them. So, how does Avro handles this? With two schemas. First is writer schema and second is reader schema. The writer schema is used to encode data and reader schema is used to decode data. Avro makes sure that these schemas are compatible. For example, if the writer schema have the extra field and that is not in the reader schema, it is simply ignored. If reader schema is expecting a field that is missing, the default value like null is filled in. Let's look at some practical examples. Suppose you have added a new field profile picture URL to the schema and give its default value as empty string. This new schema will still be compatible with older data because the default value is used whenever this field is missing. But what if you don't provide the default value? And that is where the things will break. The reader won't know what to do with this missing field. Okay, moving to the next. There are two types of compatibility in Avro. First is forward compatibility and second is backward compatibility. Okay, what do you mean by forward compatibility? Newer schemas can write the data and older schemas can read the data. Let's write it down. Newer schema can write data and older schema can read data. And in backward compatibility, it is vice versa. So, older schema can write data and newer schema can read it. To maintain this, you need to follow some rules such as adding fields with default value. Second is removing fields that are not required. Third, using union types for nullable fields. For example, if you add a union type null string for a new field, both older and newer versions can work seamlessly. Okay, so this was all about Avro. Let's talk about the limitations of Avro. Of course, Avro is not perfect. One limitation is both the writer and the reader must have the access to the schema. If there is a mismatch, decoding can fail. But if you follow the rules for schema evolution, the problem is rare. So, where Avro is used, it is heavily used in the big data frameworks like Hadoop and Apache Kafka for log aggregation, data exchange, and file storage. For example, let's say you are working with a massive log file. Using Avro reduces the storage space and makes processing faster. So that is it for today's session on Apache Avro. I hope this video have made your concepts clear and gave you the confidence to use Avro in your projects. If you find this video helpful, then please make sure you have subscribed to this channel and like and share with your friends. And as always, leave your questions in the comment box or any suggestions you have. I will be happy to answer them. See you in the next video.